Conflict theory. Conflict theory takes a critical view of social stratification and considered society as benefiting only a small segment. Conflict theories believe that stratification perpetuates inequality, draw many of their ideas from the works of Karl Marx, who believed that social stratification is influenced by economic forces and the relationship in society are defined by the factors of production. Marx considered society to be divided between two groups, the bourgeoisie or capitalists and the proletariat workers who believed that manual labor. So ang sinasabi dito, ang conflict theory, it is a way of studying society that focuses on the inequalities of different groups in a society. Sabi pa dito, it is based on the ideas of Karl Marx from the 19th century who believed a society involved through several stages. Ito po yung feudalism, capitalism, and socialism. Noong 19th century po sa Europe ay isang capitalist society where the rich upper class called the bourgeoisie were a minority of the population and the poor lower class called the proletariat were the majority. Now, kung iisipin po natin that the majority, which is the proletariat or the lower class, would have more sway over the society, hindi po. It is the bourgeoisie that have the most power. Yung bourgeoisie po, ito po yung mga taong may-ari ng mga buildings, factories that produce everything people needed. And then, they sold what they produced to earn a living. Then, yung proletariat naman, they only had their labor to sell to make a living and they were dependent on the factory owners to get paid. Symbolic interactionism refrains from looking into the larger structural factors that define social stratification and contribute to inequality and poverty. It examines stratification from a micro-level perspective and attempts to explain how people's standing affects their everyday interactions. Social stratification or symbolic interactionism often leads people to interact with others within their own social class, a system that groups people together. So, ang symbolic interactionism, it takes a small-scale view of the larger structural factors na nagdi-define sa social stratification. Mas nakafocus ito sa paghahati-hati ng ating society. And then, ang stratification naman, ini-examine ito from a micro-level perspective or yung mga tinatawag nating lower class at sinusubukan nilang ipaliwanag kung paano namumuhay at nag-i-interact yung mga taong nasa level na ito. And next, yung social stratification sa symbolic interactionist, sinasabi dito na yung mga tao ay nag-i-interact sa isa't isa based sa kanilang social class. So like for example po, kapag may okasyon tayo like birthday, yung mga handa natin, sinishare natin sa mga kapitbahay natin. In contrast naman po sa mga mayayaman, kapag may okasyon sila like birthday, kung sino lang yung nasa loob ng bahay nila, sila lang yung makakakain ng handa. Halos karamihan naman kasi sa kanila is hindi naman nila kaibigan or close friends yung mga kapitbahay nila. So, sa madaling pagpapaliwanag po, nakabase yung pagkilos natin sa isang bagay based sa ating social status. Social inequality. Societies are usually characterized by divisions. Social divisions reflect an equal distribution of status, wealth, and power within society and results in individuals and groups occupying different positions of influence and power. Social inequality may be expressed differently from society to society but is often seen in distinctions in class, gender, religion, ethnicity, and age. Okay, so let's talk about social inequality. So when we say social inequality, what we're saying is that the resources in a society are eventually distributed. Now, an excellent example of this is the wealth distribution in United States, where the top 20% have 72% of the wealth of the country, and then the bottom 20% only control about 3%. So as we can see, that's a great deal of inequality. Kung iisipin natin ang about social inequality, we often think about our society and kung paano ito naka-structured into different classes. One of the ways that we do this is by labeling society as containing the upper class, middle class, and lower or working class. And ang mga class distraction na ito ay often made on the basis of people's job or incomes. Alam naman natin na kung sino yung mas maraming pera. Sila yung may kadalasang may better access sa quality education, healthcare, and other services gaya ng housing or good nutrition. One of the other things that we can think about is that there are groups of the population that are really disappointedly affected by this social inequality. Minorities, for example, ethnic minorities or racial minorities, sila yung tend to have greater degrees of inequality, as manifested by lower incomes, lower education opportunities, and reduced access to healthcare. And the healthcare they do get is often substandard. In addition to racial and ethnic minorities, we should also consider yung mga tao na mahihirap or yung mga taong nasa poverty line also face considerable barriers to obtaining the same healthcare, education, and other resources such as housing as other people. So really being ethnic minority, racial minority, or being very poor puts you at a great social disadvantage. In some ways, gender does too. We know that being female carries with it certain disadvantage in regards social equality, in that female often experience differences in terms of pay, known as the gender pay gap, where they may be paid less than their male peers. They may also experience the glass ceiling effect, where they may be more poorly represented in higher position, more powerful position within companies and other institutions, even public institutions. So, gender is also an important consideration. Origin of the concept of inequality. The conservative view. Number 1, Hobbes. Number 2, social Darwinism. Liberal view. Rousseau, Marxist concept. Next are the characteristics of social stratification. Toomin, 1967, enumerates the following characteristics of social stratification. So, the first characteristics of social stratification is, it is social. It means na yung social stratification refers to society's categorization of its people into ranking of social economic tiers na nakabase on factors like wealth, income, race, education, and power. Next characteristic is, it is an ancient found in all societies. Nasabing ancient ito at makikita sa lahat ng mga societies dahil noon pa man, we already have the social stratifications since the Bronze Age societies. Third characteristic is, it is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous meaning found anywhere. So gaya lang ng sinabi ko kanina, the social stratification is found anywhere dahil it started since the Bronze Age. Next characteristics is, it is diverse in its forms, meaning to say that the social stratification ay binubuo ng mga tao from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc. Then lastly, social stratification is consequential. Why? Because social stratification provides motivation for different positions, particularly those which carry higher statuses and rewards. By distributing resources unequally, the society motivates people to work harder and better in order to achieve a higher status. Next is access to social, political, and social capital. Pierre Bourdieu, a French sociologist, dealt extensively with class inequalities by arguing that capital does not only refer to economic assets, but also includes cultural, symbolic, and social capital. Cultural capital refers to the forms of knowledge, educational credentials, and artistic taste that a person acquires from family background, which give them higher status in the society. Sinasabi lang dito na si Pierre Bourdieu, a French sociologist, says that the capital does not only refer sa economic assets, kundi pati na rin sa cultural, symbolic, at social capital. Then, sinabi rin dito na ang cultural capital daw ay nagre-refer sa knowledge, educational, credential, and artistic taste ng isang tao na nakuha niya sa estado ng kanyang pamilya, which is nagbibigay naman daw sa kanila ng higher status sa society. Social capital refers to resources based on group membership, relationship, and networks of influence and support. So sinasabi dito, ang social capital ay ang mga network ng mga ugnayan sa pagitan ng mga tao na nakatira at nagtatrabaho sa isang particular na lipunan na nagbibigay daan sa lipunang iyon upang gumana ng mabisa. Symbolic capital refers to the acquisition of reputation and competence and an image of respectability and honorability. In symbolic capital, the resources available to an individual on the basis of honor, prestige, or recognition and service as a value that one holds within a culture. Political capital refers to the trust, goodwill, and influence a politician has with the public and other politic figures. So, political capital is a metaphor used in political theory to conceptualize the accumulation of resources and power built through relationship, trust, goodwill, and influence between politicians or parties and other stakeholders such as constituents. These forms of capital constitute the resources of people's habitus, which refers to the personal psychological disposition that are shaped by the forms of capital and family background, while also modifying them in the light of engagement with the social world. A person can combine these forms of capital and transform or active them to gain advantage in the social field. So, the word habitus means it is the way that individuals perceive the social world around them and react to it. Yung kung paano tayo mag-isip sa isang bagay na nagsishape sa pagkatao natin dahil sa family background natin or sa kung ano yung naa-adapt natin habang lumalaki tayo. So, dun sa pangalawa, so itong pagkatao natin na nakuha natin sa surroundings natin ay pwede natin maging advantage sa social field.